We're going to discuss the quotient rule of differentiation with a given inverse trigonometric functions. Alright? So we've discussed already kung anong application niya sa sum and difference rule at saka sa product rule. Ngayon, sa quotient rule naman po tayo. So, yung formula ng quotient rule of differentiation, di ba meron tayong derivative of f of x all over g of x. Kaya nga. Okay. So, if you're going to recall, ito yung original formula niya. So, kung si f of x ay nasa numerator, tapos si g of x nasa denominator, yung formula nito ay magiging g of x times the derivative of f of x minus f of x times the derivative of g of x. Alright? All over square ng g of x. Ayan. So, syempre, medyo mahaba to. So, why not let's just basically represent f of x and g of x as letter u and letter v respectively. So, we can simply have this format na lang instead. The derivative of u all over v, where your u is a numerator and your v is the denominator. So, if this is the case, then ganito magiging tsura niya. This would be v du minus u dv minus u dv all over v squared. Okay? Or, kung gusto niyo namang palitan yung lettering, kumbaga, since kasi dito sa formula na to, we use u as for the numerator and your v as for the denominator. Now, how about we interchange? So what if v is used for the numerator and u is used for the denominator? So mangyari dyan, ganito maging formula niya. So you will have u dv minus v du all over u squared. Alright? So ganito yung magiging formula niya. That's the case. So to avoid confusion, I recommend one formula that I would like to convince you to use this instead. The derivative of top all over bottom. Alright? So, in here, ganito maging formula niya. Bot or bottom times d top or derivative ng top minus top times the derivative ng bottom all over the square ng bottom. So basically, I recommend you to use this formula because in here, you can easily represent which one is on the numerator and which one is on the denominator. So pag sinabi nating top, ibig sabihin nito kung anong meron sa numerator. Pag sinabi kong bot or bottom, ibig sabihin nun ano meron sa denominator. Siyempre, bottom, ibig sabihin nun nasa baba, so denominator. Top, ibig sabihin nun nasa taas, so numerator. So we will use this formula. Now, try natin tong i-apply sa inverse trigonometric functions. So let's have this one. Our first example is getting the derivative of arc sine all over arc cosine. So now, if you're going to take a look, yung nasa taas or si top, we have arc sine. Then on the bottom or bot, sa baba mismo, we have arc cosine. Now, let's get their derivatives. So, ang derivative ng top, which is derivative ng arc sine, this is 1 all over the square root of 1 minus x squared. Then, sa bottom mismo, if you're going to recall, almost the same lang sila sa derivative ng arc sine, pero negative na lang siya. So, magiging negative 1 all over the square root of 1 minus x squared. Now, let's substitute it in this formula. So, yung formula natin, we have bot d top minus top d bot all over the square of the square of the bottom. Ayan. So, I'll copy this one at ilagay siya sa baba. This dito. Ayan. So that we can have more space. So, bottom, which is C, our cosine, times derivative ng top, which is 1 all over the square root of 1 minus x squared, minus top, which is the arc sine, times the derivative ng bottom, which is negative 1 all over the square root of 1 minus x squared. There we go. All over square ng bottom, which is square ng arc cosine. Now, let's simplify. So, multiply natin si arc cosine sa katabi niya, magiging arc cosine all over the square root of 1 minus x squared. On the right side, or on the second term, meron tayong negative arc sine times negative 1 all over the square root of 1 minus x squared. So, magiging positive na to kasi parehas silang negative. So, this would be plus arc sine all over the square root of 1 minus x squared all over the square of arc cosine. So sa numerator, we can still simplify this one because if you're going to take a look, both of the terms in the numerator are similar fractions. Or ibig sabihin nun, itong terms na to at saka ito, may parehas silang denominator. So we can add them together. Okay? So by doing so, if you're going to add them together easily, magiging arc cosine plus arc sine all over the square root of 1 minus x squared all over the square of arc cosine. That's it. Okay? And last but not the least, we will simplify this one by reciprocating. So, pag i-reciprocate natin siya, ganito maging tsura niya. Arc cosine x plus arc sine x all over the square root of 1 minus x squared times 1 all over the square of arc cosine. So multiplying them together, you will have this answer, which is arc cosine plus arc sine all over the square of arc cosine times the square root of 1 minus x squared. So you ang final nating sagot. Think there's another way to simplify this one, then you are lucky to do it by your own, as long as it is correct. So we have this derivative of arctangent all over arccotangent. So once again, on the top, we have arctangent, and on the bottom, we have arccotangent. So kunin natin yung derivative ng dalawa. So derivative ng top. So ang derivative ng arctangent, that would be 1 all over 1 plus x squared. The next derivative ng bottom, the same lang sila ng arctangent pero negative lang siya. So magiging negative 1 all over 1 plus x squared. So now let's substitute the formula. We're going to put the formula here. So formula, once again, it is bottom times derivative ng top minus top times derivative ng bottom all over square ng bottom. Now, let's substitute. So, punta ko dito sa baba. Bottom is basically arccotangent times derivative ng top. We have 1 all over 1 plus x squared. Next, minus top, which is arctangent, times derivative ng bottom, which is negative 1 all over 1 plus x squared. Ngayon, square natin yung bottom, which is square ng arccotangent. So, let's now simplify things. I-multiply natin yung arccotangent tsaka yung katabi niya. So, we will have arccotangent all over 1 plus x squared. Next, on the right side, we have negative arctangent times negative 1 all over 1 plus x squared. So, magiging positive to. So, we will have arctangent x all over 1 plus x squared. All over yung denominator nila, which is the square of arccotangent. Ayan. So, we can still simplify this one because yung nasa taas, parang the same lang sila sa recent problem. Two terms in the numerator are similar fractions. So we can basically combine the numerators and copy their common denominator. So magiging arccotangent plus arctangent all over 1 plus x squared. Then let's copy their denominator, which is the square of arccotangent. Okay, and lastly, we must reciprocate this fraction. So to reciprocate, we will have arccotangent plus arctangent all over 1 plus x squared times 1 all over the square of arccotangent. So by multiplying them together, magkakaroon tayo ng result ng arccotangent x plus arctangent x all over the square of arccotangent times quantity 1 plus x squared. And there you go. So let's just say, meron tayong ganitong example. The derivative of arcsine all over, sabihin natin arcsecond. Ayan. So in here, it's obvious na yung top natin, which is C, arcsine x. Then sa bottom, it's obvious that it is arcsecond x. So kunin natin yung derivative ng top, which is 1 all over the square root of 1 minus x squared. Kunin natin yung derivative ng bottom, we will have 1 all over the absolute value of x times the square root of x squared minus 1. So, of course, the formula is what? Times the derivative of top minus top times the derivative of bottom all over the square of bottom. Ayan. So now we can substitute it here. Bottom, which is C, arcsecond, times derivative ng top, which is 1 all over the square root of 1 minus x squared, minus yung top, which is arcsine, times derivative ng bottom, which is 1 all over the absolute value of x, times the square root of x squared minus 1. All over the square ng bottom, which is the square ng arcsecond. Now, let's simplify. So, same thing. Multiply natin muna. Arcsecond times 1 all over the square root of 1 minus x squared. Magiging arcsecond all over the square root of 1 minus x squared. Then on the right side, negative arcsine times 1 all over the absolute value of x times the square root of x squared minus 1. We will have arcsine x all over the absolute value of x times the square root of x squared minus 1 all over the square of arcsecond. Okay. Now, as you can see, compare natin dun sa last two problems natin, di ba when we multiply two things on the numerator, di ba napapansin natin na similar fractions nila. However, on this case, hindi sila magka-similar. Kumbaga, magkaiba sila ng denominator. So rather, this is a dissimilar fractions. So ang gagawin natin if you wanted to what do you call this one? If you wanted to group them together. Kumbaga, what you're going to do if you want them to form into a whole fraction. So yan, basically, you will do butterfly technique. Okay? So, butterfly technique is basically cross multiplication tapos i-multiply mo yung dalawang denominator. Alright? So first, let's cross multiply. So cross multiply natin si arcsecond sa denominator ng arcsine, which is the absolute value of x times the square root of x squared minus 1. Alright? So with that being said, magiging ano na to? Absolute value of x times arcsecond times the square root of x squared minus 1. Then next, ikopya mo yung operation nila in between them, which is si minus sign. Then next, i-cross multiply natin si arcsine, tapos yung square root of 1 minus x squared. So magiging arcsine x times the square root of 1 minus x squared. Ayan, there we go. Then last but not the least, multiply natin yung denominator nila. Okay? So if you're going to multiply the denominators, magiging ano na to? Absolute value of x times the square root of 1 minus x squared times the square root of x squared minus 1. And you can actually combine these two these two terms na naka-radical sign or naka-square root. Okay? Since kasi um, magkaparehas naman sila ng radical sign, kumbaga both of them ay naka-square root, you can just combine them into one. Okay? Parang ganito lang yun eh. Let me give you a simple example. Square root of x times square root of y. Magkaiba naman si x at saka si y. Okay? Kung mapapapansin nyo, di ba? Both of them are not equal to each other. They are not exactly the same. However, both of them, meron silang the same na square root. So, kung multiply mo sila, magiging square root of x times y. Okay? So, to have another example, sabihin natin meron tayong square root of x minus 1 times the square root of x plus 2. Okay? So, in sides, they are not the same, but both of them are in square roots. So, magiging the square root of x minus 1 times x plus 2. Ganyan na yung magiging itsura niya. Therefore, ito, if you're going to multiply the square root of 1 minus x squared times the square root of x squared minus 1, magiging ganito to. We will have the square root of 1 minus x squared then times x squared minus 1. Ganito maging itsura. Alright? Then now let's copy the denominator. Okay. So na yun, to simplify things, we must reciprocate this one. Okay? So medyo mahaba yung numerator ko. So I'll just basically copy this one. Kaya lang ha. Ay, sorry. Copy, tapos paste. Yan, lagay ko siya dito. Ay, hala. Yan, there you go. Alright? Then times 1 all over arc second squared. So multiply them together, ang maging resulta niya ay ganito. You will have absolute value of x times arc second times the square root of x squared minus 1 minus arc sine x times the square root of 1 minus x squared all over the absolute value of x times the square of arc secant x times the square root of quantity 1 minus x squared times quantity x squared minus 1. O, diba? So, that's how you do it, basically. Alright? So, alam kong medyo mahaba to. But again, it's worth it. And once again, if there is anything that you can do to simplify this one, then you are welcome to try naman. Di naman ako literal against naman sa pag-simplify. Kasi to be honest, medyo mahaba to. And in my opinion, that's the only way on how will I simplify this one. So if you think there's another way to simplify it, then go for it. All right? For our last example for today, we have the derivative of Sabihin natin meron tayong arc cosecant all over negative arc secant. Ayan. Okay. So in here, let's now solve this problem. So sa top, obviously, meron tayong arc cosecant. So bottom or bot, we have negative arc secant. Now, kunin natin yung derivative ng top. You will have negative 1 all over the absolute value of x times the square root of x squared minus 1. Kunin natin yung derivative ng bottom. So almost the same lang sila. It's just that yung kay arc secant ay positive siya. Okay? Pero kay arc cosecant, negative na lang siya. So magiging negative times quantity 1 all over the absolute value of x times the square root of x squared minus 1. Alright? There we go. So in here, we will have negative 1 all over absolute value of x times the square root of x squared minus 1. Okay. Now, substitute natin yung formula. I substitute tuloy. Why do we keep saying that? Basically, we will now use this formula. Yan. There you go. That's it. So let's substitute. So on the bottom, we have negative arc secant. All right? Times on the top, or the top pala, sorry, we have negative 1 all over the absolute value of x times the square root of x squared minus 1 minus top, which is arc cosecant, times the derivative ng bottom, which is negative 1 all over absolute value of x times the square root of x squared minus 1. And all over the square ng bottom, which is the square of negative arc secant. All right? So let's now simplify. So if you're going to multiply negative arc secant x at saka si negative 1 all over the absolute value of x times the square root of x squared minus 1, or basically, if you're going to multiply these two, ang mangyayari dyan, we will have positive arc secant all over the absolute value of x times the square root of x squared minus 1. So if you're going to multiply these two together, okay, si negative arc cosecant, tsaka si negative 1 all over the absolute value of x times the square root of x squared minus 1, we will have arc cosecant all over absolute value of x times the square root of x squared minus 1. Okay? Then let's copy the denominator. So as you can see here, dito, baka malito kayo rito, guys. Okay? Dito sa paano nyo to i-square. Kasi we have a negative, which is ito, negative sign, at meron kang function dito. Okay? So, if you're going to tell me what would be the square for this one, then I can tell you naman. Ang square ng negative arcsecond is the square of arcsecond. Kumbaga, positive siya. So, let me explain why. So, think of it this way. Meron tayong x times y raised to 2. So, that means, since kasi ito, si x at si y, they are both separated by the multiplication operation. Magkadikit-dikit lang sila, we can have x squared times y squared. Pwedeng ganyan. Now, if we have negative x raised to 2, so pwede natin silang i-separate into 2. Okay? Just like what we did here. Okay? So, ito, magiging ano na to? Negative 1 raised to 2 times, negative 1 raised to 2 times x raised to 2. Ganito magiging resulta niya. Alright? So, ito magiging 1 times x squared. So, we will have x squared. So, therefore, kung meron tayong negative arcsecond x raised to 2, pwede kong separate si negative at saka si arcsecond. So, magiging negative 1 raised to 2 times the square of arcsecond x. So, ang square ng negative 1 ay positive 1. Ito, since di tayo sure kung anong maging squared version nito, so we can just simply copy this one na lang. Then multiplied together, we will have this one as the answer. Okay, nakuha? So, ganun lang. Now, let's simplify pa. So, the same thing sa first two problems nating sinolve. Sa taas ng numerator, we have two terms that are similar fractions. So, we can add them together easily. So, we will have arcsecond x plus arccosecond x all over absolute value of x times the square root of x squared minus 1 all over the square of arcsecond. There we go. And now let's reciprocate. Okay? So kung i-reciprocate natin to, we will have arcsecond x plus arccosecond x all over the absolute value of x times the square root of x squared minus 1 times 1 all over the square root of arcsecond x. So we will have two fractions, then we can multiply them together. We will have arcsecond x plus arccosecond x all over the absolute value of x times the square of arcsecond. Teka lang, wait lang. Mali ako ng pagkasulat. There you go. Times the square root of x squared minus 1. So yan yung mga final sagot natin. So as you can see guys, it's actually easy, right? It's actually easy in a way. Okay? Pero what more pa kaya if, for example, what more pa kaya if we have this type of example, kunwari lang, the derivative of arcsine x plus arcsecond x all over arccosine x. Kumbaga meron tayong whole expression at least on one of the side of the fraction. So, yun, medyo mahirap na. Pero at least, I gave you the idea on how would you use quotient rule of differentiation sa given nating mga inverse trigonometric functions. So, if you're welcome to try this one, then so be it. Okay? Kasi ito, I'm basically giving you an idea how would you use what do you call this one? Quotient rule of differentiation sa mga given natin inverse trigonometric function. So try this one, parang gawin nyo to as an assignment. Then, try nyo nga i-comment down or actually kasi pag i-comment yung mahaba to. Or basically just check nyo lang sa, meron kasi mga websites na titingnan nila yung derivative nito once you type a expression or function, tapos papapakita nila yung sagot. So, take a look. Okay? Basically, like, try to, ang hirap kung naman na-explain to. Basically, to sum it up, try this as your assignment. Okay? Assignment nyo to. Then, after that, you can verify it with the use of other websites, katulad ng derivative calculator or Wolfram Alpha and iba pang mga iba pang mga websites na mayroong derivative calculator. Okay? So, that is all guys. I hope na may matunan kayo rito and lahat ng mga problems rito are actually all basic. So, if there would be a medyo complicated tulad nito, I still do it naman. As long as you know the quotient rule of differentiation and you take patience on it and practice, then for me, in my opinion, you will be very impossible pagdating sa pagkabagsak dito sa ganitong mga exercises.